The thunderous crack of a Barrett rifle pierces the stillness of the Cascade foothills. A titanium-coated round cuts through the mountain air at nearly 3 times the speed of sound. 2 miles away, a metal silhouette of a human target rocks, violently backward as the bullet strikes dead center, a shot most military snipers would consider impossible. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Dawn breaks over the sleepy mountain town of Everdale, casting long shadows across the weathered buildings of Main Street. Morning light filters through the blinds of a modest bookstore nestled between the town's only pharmacy and a family-owned hardware shop. Inside, Rebecca Harlow moves with quiet efficiency, preparing for another day of business. Her movements are precise and economical, betraying nothing of the fatigue that occasionally haunts her after nights of disturbed sleep. The bookstore, aptly named New Chapter, has become a fixture in Everdale since Rebecca opened it 3 years ago. The interior exudes warmth with its oak shelves, comfortable reading nooks, and the perpetual scent of fresh coffee from the small service counter in the corner. Yet despite the inviting atmosphere, there's a certain spareness to the shop that reflects its owner, welcoming but revealing little. Rebecca herself is a study in contained composure. At 42, her athletic frame carries no excess. Her dark hair streaked with premature silver, tied back in a practical knot. Her face, though still striking, bears the subtle markers of someone who has witnessed more than most. Fine lines around her eyes that deepen when she's lost in thought. A vertical crease between her brows that never fully relaxes. Most noticeable are her eyes. Amber-flecked and intensely observant, they catalogue every detail of her surroundings with unconscious vigilance. The townsfolk of Everdale know Rebecca as the quiet bookstore owner who arrived 3 years ago and established herself. With minimal fanfare, some found her reserved nature off-putting at first, but her careful selection of inventory, everything from bestsellers to obscure technical manuals that inexplicably sold well to visiting forestry workers, and her willingness to special order almost anything eventually won over most locals. Her small contributions to community events and unfailing politeness have earned her a place in the town, if not its inner circle. What Everdale doesn't know is that the simple brass urn on the highest shelf behind Rebecca's counter doesn't contain the remains of her late husband, Michael Harlow, as most assume, but rather holds a bronze star and Distinguished Service Cross awarded to Master Sergeant Michael Harlow of the 5th Special Forces Group. Beside the urn sits a dog-eared copy of The Odyssey, their shared favorite, containing a photograph used as a bookmark, Michael in desert camouflage, arms slung around Rebecca in similar attire, both squinting against Middle Eastern sun. Few in Everdale would recognize Sergeant Rebecca Harlow, formerly of the U.S. Army's elite covert sniper units, recipient of multiple commendations that remain classified. Fewer still would connect the reserve bookseller with the operator once known by the call sign Wraith, so named for her uncanny ability to infiltrate hostile territory and eliminate high-value targets without leaving a trace of her presence. This morning, Rebecca arranges a new display of regional history books near the front window, positioning herself to observe Main Street without being obvious. Her weekly ritual includes cataloging every vehicle that passes, make, model, condition, occupants, and patterns. Today, she notes 2 unfamiliar trucks parked outside the diner across the street, late-model Ford F-250s with Montana plates and custom suspensions typical of off-road enthusiasts. The vehicles are too clean for genuine backcountry use, their spotless exteriors suggesting performative rather than practical purpose. Rebecca's only companion in the shop is a German shepherd named Atlas, a service dog wearing a vest that indicates military veteran support. Most customers assume the dog assists with anxiety or PTSD, not entirely untrue, though incomplete. What they don't realize is that Atlas was Michael's military working dog, retrained after his death to serve Rebecca. The shepherd watches the street with the same attentive focus as his owner, his posture shifting subtly when the diner door opens and 4 men emerge from breakfast. Atlas's ears flatten slightly, a reaction Rebecca notes immediately. "I see them," she murmurs, reaching down to stroke the dog's head. "Assessment." It's a habit she's maintained, speaking to Atlas, as she once communicated with spotter partners. The dog's instincts for character evaluation have proven remarkably reliable. The men cross toward the hardware store, their gait displaying the distinctive swagger of those accustomed to physical intimidation. Their leader, a tall man with a telltale military bearing despite his civilian clothes, scans the street with the practiced awareness Rebecca recognizes instantly. Former military, possibly special operations based on his movement patterns and the subtle way he positions himself relative to potential threats. The others follow his lead unconsciously, suggesting a unit that has operated together for some time. Rebecca continues arranging books, her positions allowing her to observe while appearing occupied. The men's conversation carries across the quiet street. "Small town like this, cash business, minimal security," the leader remarks, his voice controlled but carrying. "Perfect setup." "How long are we staying, Kane?" asks one of his companions. A wiry man with a distinctive scorpion tattoo visible on his forearm. "Long enough to make it worth our while, Russo," Kane replies, his gaze sweeping across the storefronts, lingering momentarily on Rebecca's shop. This place practically screams. Easy pickings. Rebecca maintains her composed expression, but her mind shifts automatically to tactical assessment. 4 men, likely armed based on their jacket adjustments and stance, possibly more in reserve. Kane demonstrates leadership and tactical awareness, suggesting military background, while the others display varying degrees of combat training. Their interest in Everdale indicates planning for multiple operations rather than a single target. The bell above her door chimes as Sheriff David Lawson enters, his uniform pressed and his manner professional despite the casual setting. At 55, Lawson represents the archetypal small-town lawman, experienced enough to handle routine issues, smart enough to know his limitations. "Morning, Rebecca," he greets her with a genuine smile. "Got that book on fishing lures you mentioned?" "Good morning, Sheriff. Just arrived yesterday." Rebecca retrieves a volume from behind the counter. Special order, as promised. Lawson accepts the book, but his attention shifts to the men outside. New faces in town, stopped by the station earlier, claimed they're scouting locations for some outdoor adventure company. "Is that so?" Rebecca responds, her tone neutral even as she notes the sheriff's subtle skepticism. "That's their story." Lawson thumbs through the book distractedly. "But 25 years wearing this badge teaches you to smell trouble. Something about them feels off." Rebecca weighs her response carefully. "They seem rather interested in our local businesses. Noticed that too, did you?" Lawson's eyes crinkle with knowing appreciation. "You don't miss much." "Occupational hazard of retail," she deflects smoothly. "You observe customers or you go out of business." Lawson nods, his expression growing more serious. "Well, I've got my eye on them. Just a heads up, they were asking around about who owns what in town. Your place came up." Rebecca's expression remains placid, though her internal alert level elevates immediately. "My humble bookstore. I can't imagine why." "Neither can I, but thought you should know." Lawson pays for his book, then adds casually, "By the way, that shooting competition the department's holding next month, sure you won't reconsider entering? We could use the participation." Rebecca offers a small smile. "I appreciate the invitation, Sheriff, but I'm not much for public events. Perhaps next year." After Lawson departs with a friendly wave, Rebecca moves to adjust the window display, positioning herself to observe Kane and his companions more clearly. They've completed their reconnaissance of the hardware store and now stand near their vehicles, Kane speaking intently to the others, while occasionally gesturing toward various buildings on Main Street. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us now. Back to the story. When Kane's gaze shifts toward her bookstore, Rebecca maintains her task without reaction, though she notes the deliberate way he studies the building, assessing entry points, lines of sight, potential security measures. Not the evaluation of a potential customer, but the calculation of someone planning something more invasive. The morning passes with steady business. The usual mix of regulars seeking recommendations, tourists exploring local history, and teenagers browsing the cafe corner while pretending interest in books. Rebecca maintains her professional demeanor while conducting continuous surveillance of the street outside, where Kane's group has split up to canvass the town more thoroughly. Shortly before noon, the bell chimes again as Martha Wilson, owner of the local bakery and uncontested gossip hub of Everdale, bustles in with her customary energy. "Rebecca, have you seen our visitors?" Martha asks without preamble, setting a paper bag containing Rebecca's usual lunch order on the counter. "Quite. The mysterious bunch, aren't they? They're staying at the Ridge Motel, paid for 2 weeks in advance, cash. Is that so?" Rebecca responds with polite interest, accepting the bag. "Thank you for lunch, Martha. You didn't need to deliver it." "Nonsense. I was coming this way to see if you'd met them yet. The tall one, Kane, he said his name was, asked specifically about your shop. Wanted to know if you ran it alone." Martha leans forward conspiratorially. "I told him you're as independent as they come, not one to need help running your business." Rebecca's internal alarms sharpen further, though her expression reveals nothing. "Very kind of you to say." "Well, it's true. Though I did mention that it's a shame you're all alone since losing your husband." Martha continues, oblivious to Rebecca's subtle stiffening. "He seemed quite interested in that. Asked how long you'd been widowed." "Did he?" Rebecca's tone remains even as she mentally recalibrates her threat assessment. Kane's interest in her personal situation suggests more targeted intentions than general criminal opportunity. Martha chatters on, unwittingly providing valuable intelligence. "They claim they're scouting for some adventure tourism company, but Frank at the gas station says their trucks have reinforced undercarriages and custom fuel tanks, like they're set up for long-distance travel through rough country. Frank has a good eye for vehicles," Rebecca acknowledges, filing this information away. "Oh, and the strangest thing," Martha adds, lowering her voice. "Sheriff Lawson ran their plates, and they came back registered to a shell company in Wyoming. Isn't that suspicious?" Rebecca weighs her response. "Perhaps their company is based there." "Perhaps," Martha agrees, though her tone suggests skepticism. "Anyway, I should get back to the bakery. The tall one and his friend with the scary tattoo were asking about the bank's schedule, and when the logging company payroll comes through, said they needed to know for planning adventure tours." She makes air quotes around the final phrase. After Martha leaves, Rebecca locks the front door and flips the sign to "Back in 30 minutes." In the privacy of the shop's back room, she removes a false panel from underneath her desk, revealing a rugged laptop secured in a biometric safe. The computer powers on silently, connecting to a secured network through channels that avoid standard ISPs. Rebecca enters a series of commands, accessing databases not available to the public or even standard law enforcement. She inputs Kane, along with descriptive parameters and suspected military background. While the search runs, she retrieves a second concealed compartment from behind a bookshelf containing first edition classics. Inside lies a satellite phone and a small metal case containing memory cards and a data drive. The computer alert chimes softly, displaying a heavily redacted military file with a photograph that confirms her suspicions. Kane, formerly Major. Victor Kane, dishonorably discharged from Special Forces 4 years ago following allegations of war profiteering and civilian casualties during classified operations in Syria. Investigation terminated prematurely due to insufficient evidence, though Rebecca notes with cold clarity that the investigating officer died in an apparent suicide 2 weeks after closing the case. Further searching reveals connections to 4 other operators discharged around the same time, 3 of whom match the descriptions of the men with Kane in Everdale. The 4th, a demolitions specialist named Mercer, remains unaccounted for in her current observations, suggesting either a team member in reserve or one yet to arrive. Rebecca's search expands, cross-referencing recent criminal activities with patterns matching ex-military tactics. Results populate rapidly. 6 small towns across Montana and northern Idaho hit in the past 18 months. Banks robbed, businesses ransacked, each operation executed with tactical precision, leaving minimal evidence. Local authorities overwhelmed. Federal resources stretched too thin to connect the dots. The pattern is clear now. Kane and his team identify isolated communities with limited law enforcement, conduct thorough reconnaissance disguised as legitimate business interests, then strike multiple targets simultaneously before disappearing across state lines. Their military training allows them to operate with efficiency civilian criminals typically lack. Rebecca closes the laptop, replacing it in its hidden compartment. Standing motionless in the center of the room, she permits herself 30 seconds of absolute stillness, a sniper's meditation that clears extraneous thought and focuses the mind on essential objectives. 3 years ago, Rebecca Harlow came to Everdale, seeking anonymity and distance from her former life. The bookstore represented her version of coming in from the cold, an attempt to create something life-affirming after years devoted to death. She had chosen this remote mountain community precisely because nothing happened here, because it offered the possibility of quiet redemption. Now, Kane's arrival threatens not just her carefully constructed peace, but the safety of the entire town. The security cameras she had installed throughout the shop, ostensibly for insurance purposes, but featuring military-grade capture capabilities, had documented Kane studying her building with more than casual interest. His specific questions about her widowhood and solitary status suggested she had been identified as either an easy target or, worse, a potential loose end to be eliminated if she observed too much. The realization crystallizes with cold clarity. Kane isn't just planning a robbery. Based on the pattern of previous operations and the team composition, he's planning a coordinated series of assaults on Everdale's commercial district, likely timed to coincide with the forestry company's monthly payroll distribution 3 days from now. Rebecca glances at Atlas, who has maintained his alert posture throughout her investigation. "Looks like we have a situation, boy." The dog's ears prick forward at her tone, recognizing the shift from shopkeeper to operator. Rebecca opens the shop again precisely 30 minutes after closing, maintaining normalcy while her mind transitions to operational planning. The Rebecca who arranges books and makes change now functions as cover for the reactivated tactical processor mapping contingencies, escape routes, and response scenarios. Through the afternoon, she serves customers with her usual measured courtesy, including 2 of Kane's men, who enter separately, browsing without purchasing while conducting obvious surveillance of the shop's layout. She notes their interest in her storeroom door and the building's rear exit, recognizing the assessment of potential security challenges rather than literary interests. When the shorter man, Russo, based on her intelligence gathering, approaches the counter with a local hiking guide, Rebecca maintains her professional demeanor. "Find everything you needed?" she asks, ringing up his purchase. "Yeah, nice little shop you got here," Russo replies, his eyes cataloguing details behind the counter. "Must be hard running it all by yourself." "I manage," Rebecca answers simply. "Been in Everdale long?" His attempted casualness is transparent. "A few years." She offers nothing further, wrapping his purchase with deliberate movements. Russo's smile doesn't reach his eyes. Nice, quiet town. Peaceful. The kind of place where nobody bothers anybody else's business. The implicit threat hangs in the air between them. Rebecca meets his gaze directly, her expression neutral, but her eyes conveying something that briefly gives Russo pause. "Yes, we value our peace here." After he leaves, Rebecca watches through the window as he rejoins Kane across the street, engaging in animated conversation while gesturing toward her shop. Kane's expression remains calculating as he listens, his gaze eventually shifting to study her store with renewed interest. As closing time approaches, Rebecca begins her usual shutdown procedure, moving with the same careful efficiency that has defined her public persona for 3 years. To any observer, she appears to be simply another small business owner concluding another unremarkable day. But beneath this practiced normalcy, Sergeant Rebecca Wraith Harlow has made her decision. After 3 years of silence, the phantom marksman is about to re-emerge. The evening air carries the scent of pine and wood smoke as Rebecca secures the bookstore's front entrance, her routine unchanged despite the calculations running through her mind. A decade of operational experience has taught her that normalcy provides the best cover. Any deviation from established patterns might alert Kane's team that she's identified their true purpose. She walks home along her usual route, a modest craftsman bungalow situated on 3 acres at the edge of town. The property backs against national forest land, providing both privacy and a strategic advantage. She had recognized immediately when purchasing it. Atlas pads silently beside her, his body language relaxed to casual observers, but alert to Rebecca's trained eye. "Standard sweep," she murmurs as they approach the house. Atlas moves ahead, circling the perimeter in a pattern they've practiced countless times. A security check disguised as a dog's natural exploration. Rebecca appears to wait patiently on the porch, keys in hand, while her gaze conducts its own assessment of the surrounding tree line and the gravel road leading to her property. Inside, Rebecca secures 3 separate locks and an alarm system, far more sophisticated than anything else in Everdale. Only then does she permit the mask of Rebecca the bookseller to slip, her posture shifting subtly as training and muscle memory reassert themselves. She moves directly to the kitchen, where she retrieves a bottle of water from the refrigerator before pressing a specific sequence on the microwave keypad. The seemingly solid wall beside the refrigerator releases with a soft click, revealing a narrow staircase descending into darkness. Motion-activated lights illuminate as she descends, Atlas following with practiced familiarity. The basement appears standard at first glance, washer, dryer, storage shelves, until Rebecca places her palm against a section of concrete wall. A biometric scanner hidden within the surface reads her prints, triggering a mechanical system that slides a portion of the wall aside. The hidden room beyond represents the truth Rebecca has concealed since arriving in Everdale, a compact but comprehensive operations center and armory. One wall holds surveillance monitors, displaying feeds from cameras strategically placed around her property. Another contains weapons secured in specialized cases, not the hunting rifles common in the region, but precision military hardware maintained in immaculate condition. A reinforced cabinet yields a laptop similar to the one in her shop, but with enhanced capabilities. Rebecca activates it, establishing a secure connection before composing a message. To Sierra, actual from Wraith subject, Potential awakening. Possible hostile team operating in Everdale. MT5 personnel identified. Ex-military. 75% probability former. Unit assets. Pattern matches recent incidents in region. Lead identified as Victor Kane. File attached. Not currently requesting assistance. Information deposit only. Will advise if status changes. Rebecca includes Kane's file and the intelligence she's gathered before transmitting through channels established years ago. An emergency protocol she's maintained but never activated until now. The message goes to a handler who had made it clear when she separated from service that certain doors remain open for operators with her qualifications. With the insurance policy dispatched, Rebecca turns to a tactical workstation where topographical maps of Everdale and surrounding terrain are displayed alongside building schematics for the town's commercial district. Her military training resurfaces as she analyzes approach vectors, lines of sight, and defensive positions with methodical precision. From another secure cabinet, she retrieves a worn leather case containing specialized optics, military-grade, binoculars, a thermal imaging scope, and a range finder that would raise serious questions if discovered in a bookshop owner's possession. A separate compartment yields a satellite phone and a collection of small devices recognizable as motion, sensors, and perimeter alarms. Preparation phase, she tells Atlas, who watches her with attentive recognition of a command phrase from their shared past. The next 90 minutes are devoted to assembling equipment for surveillance that will begin tonight. Rebecca selects clothing from a specialized closet, not tactical gear that would immediately identify her as military, but high-performance hiking clothes in muted colors that allow both mobility and concealment in woodland settings. The fabric incorporates technology that minimizes thermal signatures, another detail inconsistent with her public persona. She's checking a specialized communications earpiece when the security system chimes, alerting her to a vehicle approaching. On the gravel road, Rebecca immediately closes the hidden room and ascends to the main floor, transformation instantaneous, body language shifting from operator to shopkeeper in the space between heartbeats. By the time headlights sweep across her front windows, Rebecca has positioned herself in the living room with a book and tea, the picture of evening domesticity. Atlas settles at her feet, though his eyes remain fixed on the door. The distinctive rumble of a truck engine identifies the visitor before the knock comes. Rebecca moves to the security panel, checking the camera feed that confirms Sheriff Lawson. Standing on her porch, his expression troubled. "Evening, Sheriff," she greets him after disengaging the locks. "Everything all right?" Lawson removes his hat, a gesture of respect that marks their interactions. "Sorry to bother you after hours, Rebecca. Mind if I come in for a minute?" She gestures him inside, noting the tension in his shoulders and the way his hand rests near his service weapon, not alarmed but definitely on alert. On. "Coffee?" she offers, maintaining the expected social script. "No, thank you. This isn't entirely a social call." Lawson remains standing, his gaze direct. "Those men I mentioned this morning, they've been asking very specific questions about in-town businesses, security systems, the bank's schedule. One of them was seen photographing the rear entrance to your shop." Rebecca allows appropriate concern to show. "That sounds troubling." "It is. I've called in their information to state police." Lawson hesitates, choosing his next words carefully. "The thing is, Rebecca, something about them feels professional. Not your typical troublemakers. You think they're planning something serious?" she observes, neither a question nor an expression of alarm. Lawson studies her with renewed interest, noting her composed response. "I think they're casing multiple businesses, yes. The timing concerns me. Forestry payroll comes through. On Friday, sits in the bank overnight before distribution. A tempting target for theft," Rebecca acknowledges. "Exactly." Lawson shifts his weight, deliberating. The state can send additional officers, but not until Saturday morning. I've only got 2 deputies, and if these men are what I suspect... Rebecca reads his unspoken concern. You're worried about being outmanned. I'm worried about the town, Lawson corrects, though his expression confirms her assessment. These men, especially their leader, they move differently. Military, maybe. The moment stretches between them, unspoken questions hovering. Rebecca considers her options, weighing operational security against pragmatic necessity. Lawson represents both a potential complication and a potential asset. Sheriff, she begins, carefully. What would you say if I told you I might have some experience with security matters? Lawson's expression shifts subtly. I'd say that might explain a few things I've wondered about since you arrived in Everdale. The revelation hangs in the air. Between them, not a full disclosure, but an acknowledgement of depths beneath her carefully constructed surface. Military? Lawson asks simply. Once, Rebecca confirms without elaboration. I prefer that remain between us. Lawson nods, respecting the boundary while processing its implications. I don't suppose that experience included tactics for dealing with armed professionals targeting a small town. It might have, Rebecca allows, a ghost of her operational confidence showing through. The sheriff removes his hat, running a hand through thinning hair as he recalculates his approach to the situation. I've been an officer for 25 years. Rebecca, I know when I'm outside my depth. If these men are planning what I think they are, my people aren't equipped to handle it. Rebecca remains silent, weighing consequences against necessity. Everdale represents more than just a hiding place for her. It became a community where she found a measure of peace after Michael's death and her own operational trauma. The thought of Kane's team violating this sanctuary awakened something she's kept carefully contained for 3 years. I'm not asking you to put yourself at risk, Lawson continues, misinterpreting her silence. But any insights? I'll help, Rebecca interrupts. Decision made. But we do this carefully. These men, if they're what I suspect, they're dangerous, in ways you haven't encountered before. Relief floods Lawson's features, quickly replaced by professional focus. What do you need from me? Information, for now. Everything you have on their movements, vehicles, any patterns you've observed. Lawson produces a small notebook, the pages filled with precise observations on times, locations, and behaviors. More detailed than Rebecca expected, reinforcing her assessment of the sheriff as more capable than his small-town position might suggest. They've established a regular schedule, he explains, pointing to notations. Morning reconnaissance as a group, then separate for individual targets in the afternoon. They're staying in rooms 4 and 5 at the Ridge Motel, adjoining rooms with line of sight to both the bank and the main road out of town. Rebecca processes this information, mentally mapping it against the town layout. And you're certain about the payroll schedule? Arrives by armored transport Friday at 3 p.m. Company policy. They don't distribute on Fridays, so it stays in the vault until Monday morning. Approximately how much? Nearly $600,000. It's the monthly payment for 4 logging operations. Rebecca nods, the tactical picture clarifying. Classic target of opportunity. Isolated location, predictable schedule, significant payoff, limited law enforcement. They've likely done this before. My thoughts exactly, Lawson agrees. What bothers me most is how confident they seem. Like they don't consider us a threat at all. That overconfidence is our advantage, Rebecca notes, military assessment now fully engaging. They're expecting minimal resistance from a small-town sheriff's department. They're not expecting someone who recognizes what they are. Lawson studies her with new understanding. You know these types. I've encountered them. she acknowledges, careful not to reveal specifics. Men who take skills meant for national defense and repurpose them for personal gain. They maintain operational discipline but develop blind spots, particularly underestimating civilian opposition. The sheriff processes this, connecting dots about Rebecca's background without pressing for details she clearly won't provide. So what's our next step? Confirmation of intent and timeline, Rebecca answers, transitioning fully into operational planning. I need to verify their patterns, identify any additional team members we haven't spotted, and determine their planned execution date. And how do we do that without alerting them? Rebecca's expression shifts subtly, a glimpse of wraith visible beneath the bookseller's careful composure. I conduct surveillance tonight. Their operational planning will happen after they believe the town is asleep. Lawson's eyebrows rise. You're planning to spy on them? These aren't amateurs, Rebecca. Neither am I, she responds simply. Something in her tone convinces him more than any elaborate explanation could have. The sheriff nods slowly, accepting that there are aspects of Rebecca Harlow he may never fully understand. What can I do? He asks instead. Maintain normal patterns. They're watching you and your deputies closely. Any deviation will alert them. Rebecca considers additional precautions. Find a reason to have your family visit relatives for a few days. That's serious? Men like this eliminate complications. Family members of law enforcement qualify as complications. Lawson absorbs this with professional gravity. I can send them to my sisters in Missoula tomorrow. Official reason will be a planned visit. Good. Rebecca moves to a window, checking the darkening forest line beyond her property with ingrained vigilance. One more thing, do you still have access to the logging company's communications from when I worked security for them? Yes, their radio frequency hasn't changed. We'll need a secure channel for communication, using cell phones. Or department radios once this begins would compromise us immediately. Lawson catches up to her thinking. I can reprogram 2 of their backup units. Different frequency, no one would think to monitor it. Bring one tomorrow, Rebecca instructs. Come to the bookstore as a customer. Nothing unusual. As Lawson prepares to leave, he pauses at the door. Rebecca, I have to ask, what exactly did you do in the military? She meets his gaze steadily. Nothing that appears in unclassified records. Understanding registers in his expression, respect mingled with newly cautious assessment. I always wondered why someone with your awareness chose Everdale. Now I'm thinking we're fortunate you did. After the sheriff departs, Rebecca secures the house again before returning to the hidden room. She retrieves a specialized pack containing surveillance equipment, night vision capabilities, and communication devices. No weapons yet. Observation comes first. Confirmation of threat before escalation. As she changes into dark clothing, suitable for nighttime forest movement, Rebecca confronts what she's initiating. 3 years of carefully maintained cover, of deliberate distance from her former life, now compromised by necessity. The quiet existence she's built in Everdale, was it ever truly sustainable or merely a temporary respite? Atlas watches as she systematically transforms from bookseller to operator, his canine perception recognizing the change in her energy and focus. Just like old times, boy, she tells him softly, checking the specialized harness that allows him to carry equipment without restricting movement. Except this time, we're protecting our home. The distinction matters. This isn't a mission assigned by distant authorities with unclear motivations. This is defending a community that, despite her careful emotional distance, has become something she values. Kane's team threatens not just her cover identity, but the genuine peace Everdale represents. As darkness settles over the mountains, Rebecca and Atlas slip out through a concealed exit in her basement that emerges within a stand of dense pines 50 yards from the main house, another paranoid feature that now proves its worth. They move through the forest with practiced silence, leaving no trail as they make their way toward town, using natural contours to remain unseen. Tonight, she will gather intelligence, assess capabilities, and confirm intentions. Tomorrow will begin the careful chess game of countering a military-trained team without revealing her own capabilities until the moment of maximum advantage. The phantom marksman has awakened. Moonlight filters through pine branches as Rebecca and Atlas navigate the forest boundary behind the Ridge Motel. The sprawling, single-story building sits at Everdale's eastern edge, a strategic location offering clear sightlines to the main road, while backed against woodland that most would consider impenetrable in darkness. Most, but not Rebecca. She moves with liquid precision through undergrowth that would entangle ordinary hikers, each step placed with deliberate care to avoid creating sound. Atlas remains 3 paces behind, matching her movements with canine efficiency. They've reached an observation point approximately 80 yards from the motel's rear entrance, close enough for surveillance equipment to be effective, far enough to remain undetected by conventional security measures. Rebecca settles into a natural depression, beneath a fallen pine, positioning herself to monitor rooms 4 and 5. The tactical advantages of Kane's team's chosen location become immediately apparent. Adjoining rooms with clear escape routes, excellent observation of the main street, minimal civilian proximity, and direct access to vehicles. Not random selection, but calculated positioning by someone with professional training. From her pack, Rebecca extracts a parabolic microphone equipped with military-grade amplification, capable of isolating conversations through standard building materials. At this range, the device connects to a specialized recording unit with voice isolation software. She positions it carefully, adjusting until the directional indicators confirm optimal reception. Establishing baseline, she whispers to Atlas, initiating the recording sequence with a series of subtle finger commands on the unit's control pad. Through her earpiece, conversations from within the motel rooms become audible, scattered fragments. At first, as the software calibrates to isolate specific voices from ambient noise. Rebecca's expression remains impassive as she listens, but her mental processing accelerates as tactical information confirms her suspicions. Timing works perfectly. Kane's distinctive voice emerges clearly. Payroll arrives Friday, sits unattended through the weekend. Sheriff's undermanned, state resources tied up with that music festival in Missoula. By the time anyone responds, we'll be 3 states away. A second voice responds, deeper, with a southern drawl Rebecca recognizes as belonging to the man she'd mentally catalogued as Kane's second-in-command. Standard distribution? Bank primary? Secondary targets simultaneous for confusion? Exactly. Mercer arrives tomorrow with the specialized equipment. Russo and Phillips handle the diversionary target at the gas station on the north end. Should draw whatever limited response the sheriff can muster. You and I take the bank vault, 15 minutes maximum from breach to extraction. The confirmation sends a chill of recognition through Rebecca. The operational structure mirrors classified tactics she's familiar with. Maximum effect through coordinated strikes, creating response dilemmas for limited law enforcement resources. What about civilians? The second voice asks. Kane's response comes with chilling indifference. Unavoidable complications. Non-lethal if possible. But this isn't a training exercise. Anyone who presents active resistance becomes a legitimate target. Rebecca's focus sharpens at this. The casual classification of townspeople as acceptable casualties elevates the threat assessment beyond simple robbery. These aren't criminals seeking financial gain with minimal complications. They're operators, applying military methodology to civilian targets with professional detachment regarding collateral damage. She continues monitoring for nearly an hour as Kane outlines additional details: timing, equipment requirements, contingency planning. Each element reveals both their professionalism and their expectation of minimal effective resistance. They discuss the sheriff's department with dismissive confidence and evaluate potential civilian interference as a minor inconvenience, rather than a significant threat. Most concerning is their specific mention of her bookstore as a tertiary target, not for its minimal cash reserves, but as a potential listening post with sightlines to the bank. Kane has identified it as a location requiring neutralization before the main operation commences. The bookstore owner, Kane notes, lives a lone widow. Routine suggests minimal security awareness. Phillips, you'll handle containment there before joining the main team. Non-lethal preferred, but your discretion if complications arise. The clinical discussion of her potential elimination should trigger emotional response, but Rebecca maintains operational detachment, cataloging information while suppressing personal reaction. The tactical processor that made her exceptional in the field engages fully, analyzing vulnerabilities in their planning that she can exploit. When the conversation shifts to equipment checks and sleep rotations, Rebecca signals Atlas to prepare for withdrawal. They've acquired confirmation of intent, timeline, and personnel, sufficient intelligence to formulate counter-strategy without risking longer exposure. Their retreat through the forest follows a different route than their approach, standard protocol to avoid establishing patterns. They move with practiced stealth until reaching the concealed entrance to Rebecca's basement, slipping inside without disturbance to external security cameras Kane's team has likely established. In her operational room, Rebecca transfers the recorded intelligence to her secure system, isolating key tactical elements while formulating response options. The situation presents a complex challenge. Kane's team possesses military training, specialized equipment, and operational experience. Conventional law enforcement response would be inadequate against their capabilities. Rebecca accesses a secured drawer containing topographical maps of Everdale and surrounding terrain. Using transparent overlays, she begins mapping fields of fire, approach vectors, and potential choke points. The tactical scenario crystallizes in her mind. Not a frontal defense against superior numbers, but an asymmetrical response targeting their operational structure and expectations. Dawn finds her still working, having transitioned from intelligence analysis to equipment preparation. The hidden compartments of her basement yield specialized items accumulated during her transition to civilian life, not standard military gear that would immediately identify her background, but carefully selected tools that provide tactical advantages while maintaining plausible deniability if discovered. By the time morning light filters through the basement's concealed ventilation system, Rebecca has formulated her approach. She will not directly engage Kane's superior force, but instead leverage their critical vulnerability, their assumption that Everdale contains no opposition with comparable training. She allows herself 3 hours of disciplined sleep, a skill developed during operational deployments, body positioned for immediate readiness, while mind cycles through necessary rest phases. Atlas maintains guard, his training complementing hers in seamless partnership. When Rebecca emerges from her home later that morning, she has fully reinstated her bookshop owner persona, posture modulated, expressions calibrated, movements deliberately less fluid than her natural capability. The transition between operator and civilian identity remains one of her most valuable skills, allowing her to navigate between worlds without triggering recognition. The bookstore opens precisely on schedule, her routine unaltered despite the night's activities. This consistency serves dual purpose, maintaining her cover while providing opportunity to implement initial countermeasures under ordinary civilian activity. Sheriff Lawson arrives mid-morning, his entrance timed to coincide with typical customer patterns. He browses casually before approaching the counter with a regional history book. "Find everything you need, Sheriff?" Rebecca asks at conversational volume, aware that Kane's surveillance may include the shop's interior. "Think so," Lawson responds, with appropriate casualness, though his eyes communicate alertness. As he pays, he slides a logging company radio across the counter alongside his cash. "Thought you might like to borrow this for your hiking. Trail conditions have been unpredictable lately." Rebecca accepts both payment and radio with a practiced smile. "Thoughtful of you. I've been meaning to get one of these." Their exchange appears entirely innocuous to casual observation, but both recognize the significance of the secured communication channel now established between them. Rebecca bags his purchase, including a handwritten note beneath the book with essential intelligence from her night surveillance. "Beautiful day for a hike," Lawson comments as he accepts the bag, understanding the confirmation of their planned encounter strategy. "Indeed. Though storms can develop quickly in these mountains," Rebecca responds, the meteorological observation doubling as operational warning. After Lawson departs, Rebecca continues normal business operations while implementing subtle security enhancements, adjusting inventory displays to create concealed observation positions, relocating specific books to provide improvised ballistic protection behind the checkout counter, verifying sightlines to strategic positions outside. At precisely 11:30, Kane enters the bookstore alone, a deviation from previous pattern that immediately heightens Rebecca's alertness. His casual browsing appears authentic to untrained observation, but Rebecca notes the systematic way he catalogues exit points, structural features, and potential defensive positions. His movement pattern confirms military background, unconscious, room-clearing procedures and positioning that maintains tactical advantage. When he approaches the counter, Rebecca meets his gaze with the polite interest of a shopkeeper, rather than the tactical assessment actually occurring behind her eyes. "Anything I can help you find?" she asks pleasantly. Kane's smile projects practiced charm that never reaches his eyes. "Just browsing. Nice shop you have here. You've been in Everdale long?" 3 years, Rebecca responds, maintaining her cover persona while mentally cataloguing his positioning, deliberate placement that gives him clear views of both entrance and back room. "Small towns have their appeal," Kane offers conversationally. "I imagine it gets quiet, though. Must be challenging running a business alone." The subtle emphasis on alone confirms her intelligence from the previous night. He's evaluating her as a potential complication requiring neutralization before their main operation. "I manage," Rebecca responds with deliberate understatement. "Everdale's been good to me." Kane studies her with practiced casualness, but his assessment carries the methodical quality Rebecca recognizes from operational threat evaluation. "I understand you're a widow. My condolences." The personal intrusion, inappropriate from a stranger, serves dual purpose, gauging emotional vulnerability while confirming isolation. Rebecca allows appropriate discomfort to show, playing to his expectation of a civilian unprepared for calculated psychological assessment. "Thank you," she responds simply, projecting subtle discomfort that reinforces his underestimation of her capabilities. "Military?" Kane asks, gesturing toward the inconspicuous photograph visible behind the counter, Michael in desert camouflage, though his unit patches are conveniently obscured in the image. "Yes," Rebecca acknowledges with practiced sadness. "Afghanistan." 2015, Kane nods with seemingly genuine respect. "I served myself, different theater." The half-truth hangs between them, a predator establishing false connection with intended prey. Rebecca maintains her role perfectly, revealing nothing of her recognition of his tactical evaluation or the counter-assessment she conducts simultaneously. "Will you be in town long?" she asks with shopkeeper politeness. "Few more days, scouting locations for adventure tourism." Kane's fabrication rolls smoothly, well practiced. Beautiful country around here. Isolated, the kind of place where anything could happen without much notice. The implied threat registers precisely as he intends. Subtle intimidation that would elude conscious recognition by most civilians but create subconscious vulnerability. Rebecca allows her expression to flicker with appropriate unease, feeding his tactical assumption of her as a non-threat. "Well, enjoy your stay," she offers with deliberate awkwardness. "Let me know if you need any local recommendations." Kane purchases a local wildlife guide, maintaining his cover while completing his reconnaissance of her shop. As he leaves, Rebecca notes the specific way he scans the street before exiting, confirming absence of law enforcement before exposing himself to potential observation. The encounter confirms two critical elements. Kane has personally designated her shop for preliminary neutralization, and he has categorized her as a standard civilian, presenting minimal tactical challenge. Both misassessments create exploitable advantages in her developing counter-strategy. Through the remainder of the day, Rebecca observes Kane's team implementing their pre-operational pattern, systematic coverage of the town's commercial district, rotation of surveillance positions, and equipment staging disguised as ordinary activities. Their discipline indicates professional training, but their confidence reveals critical vulnerability, absolute certainty that Everdale contains no one capable of recognizing their methodologies. When young Tommy Anderson, the 16-year-old son of Everdale's mechanic, enters the shop after school for his weekly comic book purchase, Rebecca immediately notes his uncharacteristic nervousness. "Everything all right, Tommy?" she asks as he approaches the counter. The teenager glances around before leaning forward. "Ms. Harlow, those guys staying at the motel? They were asking me about ways into the national forest behind your property, offering money for me to show them trails." Rebecca maintains composed concern, appropriate for a shop owner rather than the tactical alertness this intelligence triggers. "Did you speak with them?" "No, ma'am," Tommy responds firmly. "Dad always says those woods aren't for strangers. Besides, they gave me a weird feeling, like they were too interested in your place specifically." "You were right to be cautious," Rebecca acknowledges, mind already processing implications. Kane's team is establishing secondary approach options, likely for surveillance or potential containment of her property during their operation. "Should I tell Sheriff Lawson?" Tommy asks. Rebecca considers optimal information flow against operational security. "Yes, but casually, next time you see him around town. No need to make a special trip." After Tommy leaves, Rebecca activates a sequence of subtle countermeasures, adjusting inventory to create concealed equipment caches throughout the shop, relocating items to provide strategic cover positions, and activating additional surveillance systems disguised within ordinary shop fixtures. By closing time, she has transformed the bookstore into a prepared defensive position while maintaining its appearance as an ordinary small-town business. Nothing visible would alert Kane's team to her preparations, yet every modification serves tactical purpose. Sightlines optimized, egress routes secured, improvised defensive positions established. As she secures the shop for the night, Rebecca's peripheral vision catches movement across the street. Russo, the team member with the scorpion tattoo, photographing her building with a specialized camera, likely capturing thermal signatures and structural details. His attempt at concealment would fool ordinary civilians, but registers immediately to her trained perception. Rather than acknowledging his surveillance, Rebecca maintains her routine perfectly, locking up, checking windows, departing at her usual time. Her movements deliberately project civilian predictability, while her mind calculates counter-surveillance measures to implement once darkness provides necessary cover. The walk home proceeds according to established pattern, though Rebecca notes a vehicle maintaining distance behind her, one of Kane's team, establishing her routine for the following day's planned neutralization. She allows this surveillance, recognizing that their operational planning now depends on assumptions about her movements and capabilities that she can exploit. At home, she again performs her normal evening routine, visible through windows. Cooking, dinner, reading by the fireplace, lights out at precisely 10:30. Only after confirming the surveillance vehicle's departure does she activate her operational preparations, moving through the darkened house with practiced efficiency, while external appearance suggests peaceful slumber. In her hidden basement room, Rebecca retrieves the item she's avoided since arriving in Everdale, a reinforced case containing her precision rifle. The weapon represents the culmination of military engineering and her own modifications, custom trigger assembly, specialized optics, and proprietary ammunition designed for extreme accuracy at distances that render conventional countermeasures ineffective, as she assembles the rifle with muscle memory, untouched by 3 years of disuse. Rebecca acknowledges the crossing of a threshold. The bookshop owner recedes as Sergeant Rebecca Wraith Harlow re-emerges, not with the cold detachment of previous operations, but with focused determination to protect the community that has become her home. The Specialized Communications Unit. Lawson provided activates with a soft tone. Overwatch, this is Sentinel. Radio check over. Rebecca allows herself a grim smile at Lawson's adoption of proper communication protocol. Sentinel, this is Overwatch. Transmission clear. Proceed. With update. Surveillance confirms additional team member arrived 1700 hours. Matches description of explosive specialist. Equipment transfer observed from hidden compartments in primary vehicles. Assessment confirmed, Rebecca responds. Timeline acceleration indicated. Primary execution likely tomorrow, coinciding with payroll arrival. Request immediate implementation of civilian protection measures as discussed. Understood. Lawson's voice carries professional gravity as he absorbs the compressed timeline. Evacuation notifications initiating at first light. Cover story of gas leak near commercial district in place. Rebecca completes final adjustments to her equipment while maintaining communication. Be advised, surveillance of my property confirmed. Counter-surveillance measures implementing tonight. Will transition to Phase 2, preparedness at 500. The operational terminology comes naturally again, years of training reasserting themselves with practiced efficiency. Tomorrow, Kane's team will execute their plan against what they believe is an unprepared town with limited defensive capability. Instead, they will encounter the phantom marksman, awakened after 3 years of silence, defending not distant strategic objectives, but a community she has quietly come to consider her own. As midnight approaches, Rebecca checks her equipment one final time before moving toward the concealed exit. Phase 1 begins now, establishing defensive perimeter, implementing counter-surveillance, and positioning response capabilities that will remain invisible until the moment of engagement. Atlas follows silently, his specialized harness equipped, with sensors that will provide advance warning of approach. Together they slip into the darkness, becoming ghosts moving through the mountain forest with deadly purpose. The hunters who believe themselves predators are about to discover they have become prey. Morning mist clings to Everdale's valley as the town slowly awakens, unaware of the invisible battle lines being drawn across its quiet streets. Rebecca stands at her shop window, a cup of coffee in hand, the picture of a small business owner preparing for another day. Only her eyes, constantly scanning, assessing, calculating, betray the military vigilance beneath the civilian facade. The Night's activities have left no visible trace, yet the tactical landscape has fundamentally transformed. Motion sensors now populate the forest behind her property. Surveillance countermeasures lie dormant around the bookstore's perimeter, and specialized equipment occupies previously empty spaces beneath floorboards and behind bookshelves. All this remains invisible to untrained observation, a phantom defense grid awaiting activation. Sheriff Lawson's patrol car makes its usual morning rounds, though Rebecca notes the subtle modifications to his routine. Slightly longer pauses. At strategic intersections, careful observation of Kane's vehicles still parked at the motel. The coordination they established via secure radio last night has transitioned seamlessly into implementation. The gas leak evacuation proceeds with remarkable efficiency for a small town unaccustomed to emergency procedures. Rebecca observes Martha Wilson directing elderly residents toward temporary accommodation at the church, 3 blocks from the commercial district, far enough from potential conflict zones to ensure civilian safety, close enough to appear reasonable. For a minor infrastructure issue, at precisely 8:15, Lawson enters the bookstore, his expression appropriately concerned for public consumption. "Morning, Rebecca," he greets her with convincing casualness. "Afraid I need to ask you to close up for the day. Gas companies found a significant leak near the main junction. Safety precaution." Rebecca plays her role perfectly, displaying appropriate business owner reluctance. "Any idea how long this will take? Fridays are usually decent for sales." "Should be resolved by tomorrow," Lawson answers, loud enough for potential surveillance to register. More quietly, he adds, "Most civilians clear. Deputy Hansen's family didn't leave. His daughter's running a fever. He's staying with them at their home on Spruce Street." Rebecca processes this deviation from their evacuation plan, calculating adjustments to defensive positioning. "Understood. I'll secure the shop and head home until further notice." "Appreciate your cooperation," Lawson responds formally, before adding in lower tones. "Frequency switched to backup channel at 1400 hours. They're monitoring police bands." After Lawson departs, Rebecca implements visible closing procedures while activating concealed countermeasures throughout the shop. To any observer, she appears to be a shopkeeper, reluctantly complying with evacuation orders. Her movements convey appropriate annoyance, rather than the tactical precision actually guiding each action. Through her peripheral vision, she monitors Kane's team implementing their pre-operational positioning. 2 team members, Rousseau and the one identified as Phillips, have established surveillance of the bank from separate locations. The explosives specialist Mercer remains out of sight, likely preparing breaching equipment. Kane himself maintains command position at the motel, coordinating through communications Rebecca's specialized equipment has identified but cannot yet intercept. At 9:30, Rebecca locks the bookstore and begins walking home, her path deliberately, taking her past the hardware store where elderly owner Frank Thompson appears to be arguing with Lawson about the evacuation. "This is ridiculous, Sheriff. I've had this place open every Friday for 37 years. Thompson's indignation carries perfectly, creating convincing cover for Rebecca to pause nearby. "Frank, it's one day," Lawson responds with practiced patience. "Gas company says it's not safe." Rebecca uses this distraction to implement a critical component of their strategy, slipping a small package to Deputy Carson, who stands slightly apart from the confrontation. The exchange appears entirely casual, 2 townspeople briefly acknowledging each other during a community disruption. The package contains essentials for the deputy's position during the coming confrontation: a specialized communications earpiece, tuned to their secure frequency, a compact tactical strobe capable of disorienting trained operators, and a ballistic insert that will upgrade his standard vest to withstand military-grade ammunition. "Fine, fine," Thompson grumbles loudly. "But they better have this fixed by tomorrow." The confrontation serves multiple purposes within their strategy, maintaining appearance of normal small-town dynamics while positioning personnel and equipment, reinforcing Kane's assessment of minimal tactical resistance and creating background activity that masks their actual preparations. Rebecca continues home, aware of surveillance following at distance, likely Phillips, based on movement pattern and vehicle choice. She maintains appropriate civilian body language while mentally transitioning to final operational preparations. At her property, she performs visible activities consistent with unexpected day off, garden work in areas visible from the road, removing items from her vehicle that suggest planned errands interrupted by evacuation. Each action deliberately reinforces the narrative of an ordinary townsperson adapting to minor inconvenience. Behind this careful performance, her operational planning accelerates. The secure radio activates briefly at scheduled intervals, confirming positions as Lawson and Deputy Carson establish their components of the defensive strategy. Deputy Hanson's inability to participate requires tactical adjustments, but the core approach remains viable. At 1:45 p.m., Rebecca's surveillance network detects Kane's team transitioning to active preparation. Their communications remain encrypted, but movement patterns indicate final equipment checks and position confirmation. The armored car carrying the forestry payroll will arrive at approximately 3:00 p.m., triggering their coordinated assault. Rebecca moves inside, closing curtains to shield her final preparations from potential observation. In her bedroom, she retrieves clothing carefully selected for the coming confrontation, not military tactical gear that would immediately identify her background, but specialized outdoor apparel in earth tones that offers similar functionality. While maintaining plausible civilian appearance, the layers incorporate modern ballistic materials concealed within seemingly ordinary fabric, protection that wouldn't register on casual inspection but will withstand standard combat loads. She secures a tactical belt beneath an outer layer, equipment positioned for accessibility while remaining invisible to external observation. Most critically, she retrieves her precision rifle from its concealed storage, assembling it with practiced efficiency before securing it in a specialized case disguised as ordinary hiking equipment. Additional tactical items, communications, specialized optics, non-lethal countermeasures are distributed through various pockets and compartments, accessible in sequence according to anticipated operational phases. Atlas receives his own equipment, a modified tactical harness that appears decorative but contains sensors and communications gear linked to Rebecca's systems. The K-9's training includes specific response patterns for the coming scenario, his role both surveillance and potential intervention if civilian safety becomes compromised. At 2:30 p.m., Rebecca secures the house through standard locks visible to potential observers while activating secondary security measures concealed within the structure. To surveillance, she appears to be simply leaving home despite evacuation orders, a stubborn shopkeeper refusing to remain idle during forced closure. She loads hiking gear and Atlas into her vehicle, creating the impression of taking advantage of unexpected free time for outdoor recreation. The precision rifle case and tactical equipment remain concealed beneath ordinary recreational items, invisible to observation that lacks specialized knowledge of military packing techniques. Departure from the property follows established patterns, nothing in her driving suggesting the tactical positioning actually underway. She takes the Forest Service road that circles north of town, a logical route for accessing hiking trails, but also providing concealed approach to her designated overwatch position overlooking Everdale's commercial district. At a particular Bend in the road, screened from potential observation by dense pine forest, Rebecca executes a precise driving maneuver that conceals her vehicle in a natural depression reinforced with camouflage materials positioned during the previous night's preparations. To passing observation, even deliberate search without specialized equipment, the vehicle would appear absent, the disturbed ground patterns consistent with normal Forest Service road usage. From this position, Rebecca transitions to foot movement with Atlas, navigating a carefully planned route that utilizes natural terrain features to prevent detection. Her movement technique reflects years of specialized training, weight distribution, that leaves minimal trace, pathway selection that offers concealment from both ground and potential aerial observation. Pace calibrated for optimal combination of speed and stealth, the position she selected offers perfect overwatch of Everdale's commercial district, elevation providing clear fields of fire to all anticipated engagement zones, natural features, offering both concealment and cover, multiple egress routes if position becomes compromised. Most importantly, it lies outside the surveillance perimeter Kane's team has established, allowing her to observe their operation while remaining undetected. Rebecca establishes her position with methodical precision, creating a shooting platform, stabilized against natural features that eliminates variables affecting extreme distance accuracy. The precision rifle emerges from its concealment, assembled with movements honed through thousands of repetitions across multiple combat deployments. The weapon represents the peak of military engineering, enhanced with her own modifications. Custom. Trigger assembly reducing pull to 4 ounces. Specialized optics incorporating range finding and atmospheric compensation. Suppressor designed for optimal sound reduction without compromising ballistic performance. In her hands, it becomes capable of engagement accuracy at distances most military snipers would consider beyond reliable capability. Through her optics, Rebecca observes Kane's team implementing final preparations. Their operational discipline is evident in their movement patterns, coordinated, efficient, maintaining appearance of ordinary activity while positioning for synchronized assault. 2 team members have established position near the bank's rear entrance, equipment disguised. In maintenance worker uniforms, Mercer has placed himself near the gas station at the north end of town, the probable location for their diversionary explosion. Kane himself maintains command position with line of sight to multiple engagement zones. His communication equipment, partially concealed beneath a light jacket despite the warm afternoon, his tactical awareness manifests in his positioning, angles selected for optimal observation while maintaining cover from potential law enforcement positions. Rebecca's assessment confirms both their professionalism and their critical vulnerability. Absolute confidence that they face ordinary law enforcement unprepared for military-grade tactical assault. Their operational security is designed to counter conventional police response, not a specialized operator with comparable training and superior position. At 2:50 p.m., the secure radio activates with Lawson's voice. Overwatch, Sentinel in position. Armored transport approaching southern checkpoint approximately 8 minutes out. Confirmed, Sentinel, Rebecca responds, voice modulated to operational cadence. Hostile team in final preparation. Primary and diversionary positions established. Maintain cover until Phase 2 initiates. Through her optics, she observes Lawson's positioning, apparently conducting routine traffic management for the gas leak, his patrol car positioned to block a side street leading to the commercial district. His tactical vest remains concealed. Beneath his uniform jacket, the specialized equipment she provided accessible but invisible to casual observation. Deputy Carson has established position near the bank's customer parking area, his presence justified by evacuation enforcement. His posture reveals none of the tactical readiness Rebecca knows lies beneath his carefully projected, routine demeanor. At precisely 2:56 p.m., Rebecca detects the distinctive electronic signature of remote detonation equipment activating near the gas station. Mercer preparing the diversionary explosion designed to draw law enforcement response away from the primary target. Sentinel, diversionary device active. Estimated detonation on transport arrival. Adjust positioning accordingly. Lawson acknowledges with professional brevity, implementing subtle adjustment to his position that maintains appearance of routine activity while establishing improved tactical coverage when the confrontation begins. The armored transport appears at the southern edge of town, proceeding at standard speed toward the bank. Through precision optics, Rebecca confirms 2 security personnel, standard commercial configuration rather than tactical operators, carrying sidearms but lacking comprehensive training for military-grade assault. Kane's team transitions to final alert status, their movements now revealing the operational discipline that confirms Rebecca's initial assessment of former special operations background. The precision rifle settles into perfect alignment, her awareness expanding to encompass entire target zone while maintaining pinpoint focus on primary objective. Kane advances toward the transport, his weapon raised, tactical movement revealing his specialized training as he establishes optimal position for controlling the situation. His confidence remains visible in his posture, expectation of overwhelming superior force against unprepared opposition. That confidence shatters with the first shot from Rebecca's position, not targeting personnel but delivering precise message. Through tactical demonstration, the bullet impacts the pavement exactly 6 inches in front of Kane's advance, the supersonic crack arriving an instant after concrete fragments explode upward from the impact point. The effect is immediate and profound. Kane immediately recognizes the implications of a precision shot from unseen position at significant distance. His tactical assessment visibly shifts, body language transitioning from offensive operation to threat evaluation as he processes this unexpected development. All units hold position, Rebecca transmits to Lawson and Carson. Await further disruption. Sequence. The Phantom Marksman has announced her presence, transforming Kane's carefully planned operation into something entirely unexpected. Confrontation with an opponent whose capabilities potentially match or exceed his own. The invisible chess game has begun. Time compresses into tactical fragments. As Kane processes the impossible, a precision shot from unseen position, delivered with accuracy that reveals specialized capability far beyond local law enforcement training. His body instinctively shifts to cover combat experience, overriding conscious thought as he signals his team to defensive positioning. Through her scope, Rebecca observes this transformation with cold calculation. Kane's shoulders tighten into combat readiness, his posture lowering as he scans rooflines and elevated positions with practiced methodology. Most revealing is his hand signal to his team, not police response protocol, but specialized military communication indicating sniper threat from unknown position. Target confirmed military background, Rebecca transmits to Lawson. Switching to psychological disruption sequence. Her second shot speaks a language only professional operators understand, impacting precisely at the corner junction where 2 team members have established cover. The bullet fragments concrete exactly between them without risking injury, demonstrating both capability and restraint that communicates more effectively than words. Kane's team responds with immediate tactical adjustment, abandoning standard criminal response in favor of specialized counter-sniper protocol, dispersing to minimal profile positions, establishing irregular movement patterns, attempting to triangulate her position through trajectory analysis. Their discipline confirms Rebecca's initial assessment, former special operations personnel applying military training to civilian targets, Through her optics, Rebecca observes Kane accessing communications equipment, likely attempting to coordinate response to this unanticipated threat. His expression reveals calculations behind tactical adaptation, weighing operational objectives against emerging opposition beyond parameters of their planning. Mercer repositioning from diversionary location, she alerts Lawson, tracking the explosives specialist abandoning his position at the gas station to provide support at the primary engagement zone. Maintain position until flanking attempt initiates. Lawson's acknowledgement comes via brief radio click. Communication discipline maintaining their advantage as Kane's team struggles to assess the tactical situation. The sheriff has positioned himself with careful precision, his patrol car providing both cover and concealment while maintaining line of sight to the bank entrance. Rebecca implements the next phase of their counter-strategy, calculated disruption designed to fragment Kane's operational structure without forcing lethal engagement. A third shot targets the communications equipment visible in Kane's hand, the precision round destroying the device without injuring the operator. This demonstration of surgical accuracy elevates psychological impact exponentially. Kane's team now faces not merely unexpected resistance, but opposition capable of neutralizing equipment versus personnel, a level of precision that communicates specialized training beyond conventional threat assessment. Targets reassessing operational viability, Rebecca transmits, observing the team's body language through her scope. Kane implementing contingency protocol, expect diversified response. Her prediction manifests immediately as Kane signals tactical dispersal, team members abandoning primary objective to establish defensive perimeter while evaluating this unexpected opposition. Their movement patterns reveal professional training in response to superior positioning, minimizing exposure while attempting to regain tactical advantage. Most significant is Kane's signal directing two team members towards civilian structures, offering potential hostage opportunity, a tactical deviation indicating willingness to escalate beyond property crime to ensure operational extraction. This development transitions the confrontation from property protection to imminent civilian endangerment. Sentinel, hostiles transitioning to civilian structures. Phase 4, authorized. Lawson acknowledges with immediate action his patrol car, suddenly activating full emergency lights while remaining stationary, creating impression of additional law enforcement presence while maintaining his secured position. The tactical strobe Rebecca provided deploys simultaneously, its disorienting effect specifically calibrated to impact combat-trained vision without permanently damaging civilian eyesight. The combined effect creates momentary sensory confusion for Kane's team, disrupting their movement towards civilian structures while Rebecca implements precision targeting of their offensive capabilities. Her next shot impacts the primary weapon held by the team member nearest the bank entrance, striking the rifle's receiver with surgical accuracy that renders it inoperable without risking operator injury. One tangible disarmed, she confirms, transitioning her scope to the next target while maintaining awareness of overall tactical development. Kane demonstrates the adaptive capability that confirms his specialized background, rapidly assessing the systematic degradation of his team's effectiveness. His response reveals both experience and tactical creativity, directing Mercer to utilize smoke devices carried for contingency scenarios, attempting to obscure fields of fire while establishing extraction route. The smoke deployment creates visible obstruction, but fails to impede Rebecca's targeting capabilities, her optics incorporating thermal imaging specifically designed to maintain effectiveness through obscuration techniques. Through the billowing cloud, heat signatures remain clearly defined, maintaining her tactical advantage, while Kane operates under assumption of achieved concealment. Maintaining target tracking through obscuration, she informs Lawson. Hostile. Team implementing extraction protocol towards secondary vehicles positioned on Cedar Street. The tactical situation evolves with fluid complexity as Kane abandons primary objective in favor of team extraction, prioritizing operator survival over mission completion when confronted with opposition beyond planned parameters. His hand signals direct coordinated withdrawal toward pre-positioned secondary vehicles established during their preparation phase. Rebecca permits this initial withdrawal movement, allowing Kane's team to believe their extraction protocol remains viable while positioning for the counter-strategy's culmination. Deputy Carson implements his component precisely, remotely activating the specialized devices Rebecca provided during their planning phase. The secondary vehicles suddenly illuminate with law enforcement lighting patterns, strobes placed during the previous night's preparation, creating impression of police vehicles established at their extraction point. This psychological countermeasure introduces critical operational uncertainty, extraction route appearing compromised, forcing tactical reassessment under pressure. Extraction route visually compromised, Rebecca confirms, observing Kane's reaction. Through precision optics. Target implementing final contingency. Prepare for escalation. Kane's response demonstrates why he commanded special operations units. Rapid adaptation under extreme pressure, tactical creativity when primary and secondary plans fail, leadership maintaining team cohesion during operational collapse. He signals immediate transition to maximum aggression, abandoning property-focused objectives in favor of creating extraction corridor through perceived opposition. This escalation represents the most dangerous phase of the confrontation, desperate. Operators with specialized training now prioritizing survival over operational constraints that previously limited civilian endangerment. Kane directs team consolidation around the armored transport, positioning for defensive perimeter while establishing communication with the vehicle's personnel, likely demanding driver cooperation for mobile extraction. Rebecca calculates optimal intervention point, the precise moment when Kane's attention focuses on transport negotiation, temporarily reducing his tactical awareness of external threats. When that moment arrives, she implements the strategy's decisive component. Her next shot represents the operation's critical communication, not targeting personnel or equipment, but delivering psychological impact through demonstration of overwhelming tactical advantage. The bullet impacts the ground precisely at Kane's feet, the message unmistakable to an experienced operator, lethal capability deliberately withheld. Simultaneously, Rebecca activates the specialized audio system positioned during night preparations, her voice projecting through speakers concealed around the engagement zone, creating omnidirectional presence that prevents positional identification. Former Major Kane, her voice carries the absolute authority developed through Specialized Operations Command. Your team is covered by precision fire from multiple positions, extraction routes compromised, law enforcement response incoming. With federal tactical units, weapons down, hands visible, or the next demonstration targets personnel. The psychological impact registers immediately in Kane's posture, recognition that opposition includes knowledge of his identity beyond public information, suggesting intelligence resources beyond local capability. More significant is his recognition of the voice characteristics, cadence and terminology specific to specialized military units, communicating peer-level operational background rather than civilian law enforcement. Kane processes this revelation with visible calculation, tactical assessment accelerating as he evaluates rapidly deteriorating operational parameters. His response reveals both professional training and pragmatic survival instinct, recognition that continuing against specialized opposition with compromised resources represents unacceptable risk assessment. He signals his team to defensive positioning, rather than surrender, maintaining options, while attempting to establish communication with this unexpected opposition. "Identify yourself," he demands, voice projecting practiced command presence despite tactical disadvantage. Rebecca maintains psychological pressure through deliberate non-response, allowing uncertainty to amplify the tactical disadvantage while implementing the counter-strategy's final phase. Lawson advances his patrol car with tactical precision, positioning to reinforce the perception of coordinated law enforcement response while maintaining personal security. Team leader, Lawson projects through his vehicle's public address system, "You are surrounded by law enforcement with specialized support. Compliance represents your only viable option." Through her scope, Rebecca observes Kane's tactical calculation, reaching inevitable conclusion. Operational parameters compromised beyond recovery, opposition demonstrating capabilities exceeding team resources, extraction routes eliminated through precise interdiction. Most significantly, opposition demonstrating professional restraint rather than maximum force application, creating opportunity for surrender without guaranteed casualties. Kane signals his team to cease resistance, weapons lowered but not relinquished, maintaining final options while indicating willingness to negotiate extraction. This transitional position reflects specialized training, neither full surrender nor continued resistance, but tactical pause, allowing situation assessment. Weapons on ground, hands visible, prone position, Rebecca directs through the audio system, maintaining psychological dominance through specific command language familiar to military operators. Kane recognizes the tactical reality. His position, untenable against unseen precision capability, demonstrated repeatedly during the engagement. With practiced efficiency, he implements surrender protocol consistent with specialized training, weapon placed carefully on ground, hands raised to shoulder height, movement deliberate to prevent misinterpretation by covering operators. His team follows with professional discipline, tactical formation maintained even during surrender process, revealing unit cohesion developed through extensive operational experience. Their positioning demonstrates ongoing situational awareness despite tactical disadvantage, maintaining minimal exposure to potential fire while complying with surrender instructions. Lawson advances with appropriate caution, maintaining cover while implementing arrest procedure. Deputy Carson emerges from his position, providing secondary coverage as the sheriff secures Kane first, recognizing command hierarchy within the hostile team, preventing potential resurgence through leadership neutralization. Rebecca maintains overwatch throughout this process, precision targeting, sustaining psychological pressure while ensuring surrender completion without escalation. Her scope remains centered on Kane throughout the procedure, tactical advantage communicated through implied presence rather than visible confirmation. As Lawson secures restraints on the final team member, Rebecca begins systematic withdrawal from her position, maintaining tactical discipline throughout disengagement, leaving no evidence of her presence beyond the results of her intervention. She transmits final confirmation through secure communication. Target secured, initiating withdrawal. Maintain security protocol until verification complete. The tactical confrontation has concluded without casualties. Precision intervention. Neutralizing specialized threat through psychological operation, rather than maximum force application. Kane's team, despite military training and operational experience, proved vulnerable to the essential weakness Rebecca identified in their planning. Absolute confidence that Everdale contained no opposition with comparable capabilities. 2 hours. Later, Rebecca observes from her shop window as state police transport vehicles remove Kane's team from Everdale. The official narrative established through Lawson's careful documentation identifies the intervention as coordinated law enforcement operation with support from unspecified tactical units, a precision of language that protects Rebecca's involvement. While providing necessary official explanation, Lawson approaches her shop as the transport departs, entering with the casual demeanor of routine community policing rather than the operational coordination they've maintained throughout the confrontation. This transition back to civilian protocols represents the final phase of their strategy, resumption of normal community function after successful threat neutralization. "Quite a day for Everdale," the sheriff observes conversationally, though his eyes communicate deeper understanding of what they've accomplished. "Gas leaks can be troublesome," Rebecca responds, with appropriate irony, maintaining their public narrative while acknowledging the operational reality beneath it. Lawson studies her with professional assessment, recognition of capabilities demonstrated during the operation, creating new understanding of the quiet bookshop owner who appeared in his town 3 years earlier. State investigators found interesting equipment in their vehicles, military grade, beyond standard criminal operations. Rebecca arranges books on a display table. Her movements return to bookseller precision rather than tactical efficiency. "Fortunate that your department handled the situation effectively. With appropriate assistance," Lawson acknowledges, respecting the boundaries of their understanding. They're asking questions about the precision shooting, trying to identify the tactical team that provided support. "Bureaucratic confusion during multi-agency response is unfortunate but common," Rebecca offers with practiced neutrality. The sheriff's expression combines respect with careful curiosity. "Kane asked specifically about you during preliminary questioning. Seemed to think you weren't exactly who you appeared to be." Rebecca meets his gaze directly, neither confirming nor denying the implication. "Small-town shopkeepers rarely are exactly what they appear to be, Sheriff. Everyone has chapters in their story that remain private." Lawson accepts this philosophical deflection with professional courtesy. "The state's crediting us with excellent tactical response, saying our department demonstrated exceptional coordination with their specialized units." "Well-deserved recognition," Rebecca responds, the linguistic precision acknowledging their shared understanding without explicit confirmation that would create official complications. As Lawson prepares to leave, he pauses at the door. "You know, Kane's team had extensive intelligence on Everdale, building layouts, security systems, routine patterns. They were planning this operation for weeks. Yet they missed critical information," Rebecca observes. "Sometimes the most important elements of a situation remain invisible until engagement forces revelation." The sheriff nods at this tactical truth, disguised as philosophical observation. "Glad Everdale had resources they didn't anticipate, though I imagine those resources might prefer resuming their quiet existence now that the situation's resolved." "Books don't sell themselves," Rebecca agrees with measured understatement. After Lawson departs, Rebecca completes restoration of her shop to its pre-engagement configuration, tactical modifications concealed beneath ordinary retail functionality. Specialized equipment returned to hidden storage, physical evidence of her operational capabilities removed from public access. The transition represents more than operational security. It reflects deliberate choice to maintain the life she's established in Everdale despite activation of capabilities from her previous existence. Unlike earlier operations where mission completion meant withdrawal, this engagement represented defense of chosen community rather than imposed objective. That evening, Rebecca stands on her porch watching darkness settle over the mountains surrounding Everdale. Atlas sits beside her, his tactical harness replaced with standard collar, though his alertness remains unchanged. "Back to normal, boy," she tells him, though both understand that normal has undergone subtle but permanent transformation. The tactical engagement forced integration of her compartmentalized existence. Rebecca Harlow, the bookshop owner, and Sergeant Wraith, the precision operator, now reconciled within single identity, rather than rigidly separated aspects of her experience. This integration, though operationally risky, creates psychological coherence that eluded her during 3 years of enforced division between past and present. Her secure communication unit activates with soft alert, indicating response to her. Situation report transmitted after the engagement concluded. The message appears deliberately minimalist. Sierra Actual acknowledges operational report. Standing resources confirmed available if situation escalates. Well handled, Wraith. Rebecca permits herself momentary satisfaction at this professional acknowledgement from former command, recognition of operational excellence without attempt to re-engage her services beyond the immediate situation. The boundary remains respected, her civilian choice preserved despite demonstrated capability. More significant is her realization that Everdale now represents something beyond tactical concealment or operational retreat. The town's defense activated, commitment beyond strategic calculation, protection of community that had accepted her reserved presence without demanding personal disclosure, allowing reconstruction of identity after operational trauma. From her porch, Rebecca can see lights, returning to evacuated buildings as townspeople reclaim their community after the gas leak disruption. Their ordinary existence continues without recognition of how close they came to violence beyond their comprehension, protected by capabilities they never suspected existed within their quiet bookshop owner. This asymmetry of awareness represents the fundamental nature of her specialized operations background. Protection provided without acknowledgement, security maintained through invisible intervention. The difference now is personal investment in the community protected rather than abstract strategic objective. As darkness completes its descent over Everdale, Rebecca makes her decision. The precision rifle returns to secured storage rather than prepared deployment, available if needed, but no longer representing primary identity. The tactical operator remains integrated within her capabilities, but subordinate to the life she's chosen to build. The phantom marksman has protected her community, and now returns to selling books until circumstances again require specialized intervention that only she can provide. The reconciliation of these aspects represents not tactical compromise, but psychological integration, acceptance that both elements constitute authentic identity rather than compartmentalized fragments. Rebecca returns inside, securing her home. With both practical locks and specialized systems, the dual nature of her existence acknowledged rather than concealed. Tomorrow, Everdale will resume normal patterns, unaware of the specialized capability residing quietly within their community. The invisible guardian remains, watchful but at peace with her chosen existence. 3 weeks after Kane's team departed, Everdale in state police custody, autumn paints the surrounding mountains with brilliant gold and crimson. The crisp morning air carries wood smoke as Rebecca shelves a new shipment of novels. Her movements return to the deliberate rhythm of the bookseller rather than the tactical operator. To casual observation, life in Everdale has resumed its predictable patterns. The gas leak incident fading into community memory, replaced by preparation for the upcoming harvest festival. Yet beneath this apparent return to normalcy, subtle transformations persist. Rebecca notices them in Lawson's modified patrol patterns, more comprehensive coverage, irregular timing that would complicate hostile surveillance. The Sheriff's Department has incorporated lessons from Kane's incursion without acknowledging the specialized assistance that enabled their success. More personally, Rebecca recognizes changes in her own daily existence. The rigid compartmentalization she maintained for 3 years has softened into more integrated identity. The tactical awareness that once remained hidden, now acknowledged as natural component of her perception. She no longer expends energy, concealing capabilities that emerged during the confrontation, allowing aspects of Wraith to coexist with Rebecca the bookseller in more balanced synthesis. The morning's quiet is interrupted by Martha Wilson, entering with characteristic enthusiasm and a basket of fresh muffins. "Rebecca, have you seen the newspaper? We've made the regional news." Rebecca accepts the offered basket with genuine appreciation, her relationship with Everdale's residents subtly transformed since the incident. Though nothing explicit was acknowledged, the community senses something fundamental about her has shifted, responding with integration beyond previous acceptance. "The gas leak drama made regional coverage?" Rebecca asks, maintaining the established narrative while reviewing the newspaper Martha offers. The headline confirms official documentation of events. Multi-agency operation thwarts armed robbery in mountain community. The article details cooperation between local and state law enforcement, crediting specialized tactical support with preventing potential casualties during confrontation with military-trained criminal organization. No mention of precision, shooting, or the specific capabilities that actually neutralized the threat. They're saying these men had robbed 6 other small towns before targeting us, Martha continues, clearly relishing Everdale's brush with excitement. Sheriff Lawson's being called a hero for coordinating with state police tactical teams. There's talk of a commendation. Rebecca reviews the article with careful attention, noting the constructed narrative crafted to explain events while protecting classified capabilities and personnel. Kane and his team identified only as armed suspects with military background, their specific identities and operational history reduced to generic criminality. "Good for the sheriff," Rebecca responds with appropriate community support. "Everdale was fortunate to have his experience when it mattered." Martha lowers her voice conspiratorially. "Frank Thompson swears he saw someone in the hills that day, a specialist from some government agency, he thinks, military type." Rebecca arranges muffins on a display plate with deliberate casualness. "Small towns and their legends. Next month it'll be Bigfoot sightings." "Perhaps," Martha acknowledges with good humor, "though I find it interesting that not a single shot was fired by our sheriff's department, yet these dangerous men surrendered. Completely, almost like someone else convinced them resistance was futile." The observation reveals Martha's perceptiveness beneath her gossipy exterior, ability to identify inconsistencies in official narratives while maintaining community social expectations. Rebecca has underestimated her, a miscalculation now requiring adjustment. Law enforcement tactical teams have specialized capabilities, Rebecca offers non-committally. Sometimes presence rather than direct confrontation achieves desired outcomes. Martha studies her with unexpected directness. "You know, I've always wondered why someone with your awareness chose Everdale. Not that we're not delighted to have you, of course." The comment hangs between them, not accusation but acknowledgement of perception beyond public identity. Rebecca recognizes the moment as inevitable boundary negotiation following. Operational activation in civilian environment, community integration requiring recognition rather than complete opacity. Small towns have advantages that busy urban centers lack, Rebecca responds, allowing authenticity without specific disclosure. Simplicity, connection to environment, space to heal from life's complications. Martha's expression softens with understanding. "Well, whatever brought you to us, I believe Everdale is better for your presence, in ways perhaps beyond excellent book recommendations." This oblique acknowledgement of Rebecca's hidden capabilities represents perfect community. Integration, recognition without demand for disclosure, acceptance of concealed depths without requiring their exposure. Martha's social intelligence manifests as ability to acknowledge the unspoken while maintaining communal boundaries. After Martha departs, Rebecca continues arranging the shop for daily operation, her movements incorporating the relaxed efficiency that represents integration of her compartmentalized identities. The tactical awareness remains, position relative to entrances, scanning patterns that assess environmental changes, continuous updating of threat assessment, but no longer hidden beneath rigid civilian performance. Mid-morning brings another visitor, Sheriff Lawson arriving in civilian clothes rather than uniform, signaling personal rather than official conversation. His expression carries intensity beyond routine community interaction. "Morning, Rebecca," he greets her, declining coffee with subtle hand gesture. "Wondered if you'd seen today's developments?" She notes his careful phrasing, developments, rather than news or information, suggesting operational relevance beyond public disclosure. Beyond our regional fame for gas leak management, Lawson's expression acknowledges her linguistic precision while conveying significance beyond their established verbal patterns. He places a folder on the counter between them, unmarked, containing documents with federal classification markings. Visible at the edges, Kane's case has been transferred to federal jurisdiction, he explains, voice modulated for privacy despite the empty shop. Apparently, his team's activities intersect with ongoing national security investigations. Rebecca maintains neutral expression while processing implications. Federal involvement suggesting connections beyond regional criminal activity, potentially validating her initial assessment of Kane's background and operations. Interesting development for a simple armed robbery case, especially considering certain details emerging during federal interview, Lawson continues carefully. Kane made specific claims about opposition encountered in Everdale, precision capabilities, beyond standard law enforcement resources. The statement represents increased operational risk, official documentation potentially compromising Rebecca's carefully maintained separation from previous identity. Her response requires calibration between security maintenance and respect. For Lawson's earned trust, criminals often create elaborate explanations for operational failures, she observes neutrally. Psychological defense mechanism against acknowledging tactical inadequacy. Lawson's expression combines professional assessment with personal concern. Under normal circumstances, I'd agree, but federal investigators seem particularly interested in these specific claims. They've requested interviews with all involved personnel regarding tactical support elements. The situation crystallizes with operational clarity, federal investigation potentially identifying specialized capabilities beyond official deployment parameters, compromising Rebecca's carefully established civilian identity. More concerning is potential reconnection to operational history she deliberately separated from current existence. What exactly did Kane report? She asks directly, abandoning abstract conversation for operational assessment. Lawson opens the folder, revealing documents with restricted classification markings. His willingness to share this material represents significant trust evolution. Beyond their previous relationship, he claims opposition included precision engagement from specialized operator with military background, specifically using terminology consistent with classified tactical units. Lawson meets her gaze directly. Kane identified his team as former Special Operations personnel recruited for private sector application after dishonorable discharge. He believes they encountered similarly trained opposition in Everdale. Rebecca evaluates tactical options, weighing continued denial against calculated disclosure to trusted asset. Lawson has demonstrated both discretion and operational value. during the confrontation, potentially representing alliance rather than security risk. Interesting theory, she acknowledges without specific confirmation. Did federal investigators appear to consider this credible? Credible enough to dispatch specialized personnel rather than standard field agents? Lawson's expression communicates significance beyond his words. Their questions focused on potential off-book assets operating within civilian environment without official sanction. The implications clarify Rebecca's risk assessment, federal investigation potentially identifying her as unsanctioned operator rather than legitimately separated military personnel. This classification would trigger comprehensive investigation beyond simple identity verification, potentially compromising her carefully constructed civilian existence. "And your response to these inquiries?" she asks, maintaining neutral expression while calculating contingency options. Lawson's posture shifts subtly, conviction replacing procedural compliance. "I explained that Everdale's Sheriff Department coordinated with designated state police tactical units as documented in official reports. Any additional speculation represents trauma-induced confabulation by suspects facing serious criminal charges. This deliberate reinforcement of official narrative, despite contradicting evidence, represents significant personal commitment to protecting Rebecca's identity, prioritizing trust relationship over procedural compliance. The sheriff has made conscious choice to shield her capabilities from official investigation, accepting potential professional risk." "That was thorough," Rebecca acknowledges, subtle gratitude beneath professional assessment. "Seemed appropriate given the circumstances." Lawson collects the documents, returning them to the folder with deliberate precision. Federal investigators often develop tunnel vision regarding specialized capabilities. Sometimes protection of community requires discretion about certain operational details. The statement represents complete evolution of their professional relationship, from community law enforcement, maintaining appropriate boundaries, to mutual operational alliance based on shared values rather than institutional affiliation. Lawson has chosen to protect Rebecca's identity without requiring complete disclosure of her background, accepting the asymmetrical information dynamic. Certain details serve no constructive purpose in official documentation, Rebecca agrees carefully, particularly when they potentially complicate lives of community members who prefer privacy. Lawson nods, understanding achieved without explicit confirmation. Federal team indicated their investigation focuses primarily on Kane's previous operations, rather than Everdale specifically. Their presence should remain minimal, assuming no additional anomalies attract attention. The warning carries professional courtesy rather than threat, acknowledgement that maintaining their established narrative requires continued operational discipline from both parties. Rebecca recognizes this boundary setting as respect, rather than limitation, appropriate definition of their evolving alliance. Everdale seems remarkably resistant to anomalies under proper supervision, she responds, with precise acknowledgement of his concern. Though proper contingency planning always serves community interests, the conversation transitions to more general matters. Community recovery from the incident, preparation for upcoming seasonal events, the natural rhythm of small-town existence resuming after disruption. Beneath this ordinary exchange, both recognize the operational understanding they've established, mutual recognition of capabilities beyond public identity, commitment to protection of community through complementary skills. After Lawson departs, Rebecca processes these developments with tactical assessment rather than emotional reaction. Federal investigation represents potential security compromise, requiring contingency planning. Yet Lawson's protective response suggests viable management strategies beyond immediate relocation. The situation demands vigilance without necessitating abandonment of the life she's established. More significant is her recognition that Everdale now represents more than tactical concealment. The community has evolved into personal commitment, transcending strategic positioning. The operational risk of remaining must be balanced against the authentic connection established over 3 years of residence and reinforced through protective intervention. That afternoon, Rebecca receives final verification of these evolving dynamics when young Tommy Anderson enters the bookstore, his expression carrying unusual seriousness beneath typical teenage energy. "Ms. Harlow," he begins with careful formality, "my dad wanted me to give you this, said it was important but private." He hands her a sealed envelope bearing no external markings. Rebecca accepts it with appropriate curiosity, maintaining civilian persona despite immediate operational assessment of potential security implications. "Thank you, Tommy. How is your father's new transmission working out?" The conversation maintains normal patterns while Rebecca processes this unexpected communication channel. After Tommy departs, she examines the envelope with tactical precautions, assessing potential surveillance risks before carefully opening the unmarked communication. Inside, she finds a handwritten note in blocky masculine script. "Government types asking questions at the garage today. Showed federal credentials, asking about tactical personnel observed during incident. Told them only saw Sheriff's Department and State Police. Thought you should know. Anderson." The information confirms expanded federal investigation potentially, compromising her security, yet simultaneously demonstrates community protection extending beyond Lawson's official capacity. Anderson's deliberate misinformation to federal investigators and subsequent warning represents civilian integration beyond tactical alliance, community members independently choosing to protect her identity without specific request or explanation. Rebecca processes this evidence of acceptance with unexpected emotional response beneath tactical assessment. Everdale has evolved from strategic positioning to genuine community, residents recognizing her value without requiring disclosure of capabilities, choosing protective alliance based on demonstrated commitment rather than explicit identification. This integration represents something she hasn't experienced since leaving specialized service. Acceptance of complete identity, including capabilities that remain unnamed, community that values presence without demanding performance. The risk calculation shifts beyond tactical assessment to include personal connection unattainable through continued relocation. That evening, Rebecca receives final confirmation of this evolving reality when her secure communication unit activates with encrypted message from former command. Sierra Actual acknowledges federal investigation into Everdale incident. Resource allocation suggests routine assessment rather than priority targeting. Recommends standard protocols without immediate relocation. Standing exfiltration available if situation escalates. Your discretion authorized. The organizational assessment aligns with her personal calculation. Potential security compromise requires vigilance without necessitating immediate extraction. More significantly, command authorization of discretion represents unprecedented operational autonomy. Recognition of her capability to assess and manage situation without direct supervision or mandated protocols. Rebecca acknowledges the communication with standardized confirmation, then implements measured security enhancements rather than emergency relocation procedures. The tactical operator within her establishes appropriate countermeasures, while the civilian identity maintains community integration, complementary aspects of unified existence rather than compartmentalized fragments. The following morning, Rebecca opens her shop precisely on schedule, the rhythm of small-town commerce resuming with superficial normalcy. Yet beneath this ordinary pattern, she recognizes the fundamental transformation that has occurred, not just within herself, but within the community surrounding her. Lawson's patrol car passes with deliberate regularity, his casual wave containing professional acknowledgement beyond social greeting. Martha delivers fresh pastries with gossipy updates that carefully avoid certain subjects while conveying essential community information. Anderson's truck slows as it passes, the mechanic's nod communicating continued vigilance regarding federal investigators. These subtle interactions represent perfect integration, community acceptance of capabilities that remain unspoken, protective, alliance based on demonstrated commitment rather than explicit disclosure. Everdale has evolved beyond location to become connection, residents valuing her presence while respecting boundaries she maintains. As Rebecca arranges books on shelves that afternoon, she notices a distinguished older man entering, immaculate, suit suggesting urban professional rather than local resident, observational patterns indicating specialized training beneath civilian appearance. His movement through the shop reveals tactical awareness similar to her own, positioning, maintaining sight lines to entrances, casual browsing that systematically evaluates environment. When he approaches the counter, his expression combines professional assessment with personal recognition. Ms. Harlow, I presume. Impressive selection of military history for such a small shop. Rebecca meets his gaze directly, recognizing former operational background beneath civilian presentation. We serve diverse interests in Everdale. Something specific you're seeking? The man studies her with practiced casualness that fails to conceal professional evaluation. Just browsing while passing through. Beautiful area, peaceful. I understand there was some excitement recently. Gas infrastructure issue? The deliberate reference to established cover story rather than actual events signals specialized knowledge beyond public information. Rebecca maintains balanced response, neither confirmation nor unnecessary denial that would escalate the interaction. Small town. Infrastructure sometimes requires maintenance, she responds with precision that acknowledges his implicit communication without engaging specific disclosure. Fortunately, our local authorities manage such situations efficiently. Indeed, he agrees, producing business card that identifies federal credentials without specific agency affiliation. John Merrick. I occasionally evaluate incident response in rural communities, professional interest only. Rebecca accepts the card with appropriate civilian courtesy, recognizing the interaction as professional courtesy rather than operational. Interrogation. Established protocol when specialized personnel identify potential counterparts in civilian environment. The approach represents verification without confrontation, allowing mutual recognition without compromising established covers. Everdale values its privacy, she notes with meaningful specificity. Community members protect what matters to them. Merrick processes this boundary setting with professional acknowledgement. Admirable quality. Stable communities depend on mutual protection rather than external intervention. Some capabilities serve best when they remain unobtrusive. The exchange represents perfect operational communication beneath civilian interaction, recognition of specialized background. Without explicit acknowledgement, mutual respect for established boundaries without demanding disclosure. Merrick is confirming her identity without challenging her civilian integration, providing professional courtesy without operational recruitment. Exactly, Rebecca agrees, completing the communication protocol. Everdale appreciates visitors who respect local customs and boundaries. Merrick nods, understanding achieved without explicit confirmation. I believe my assessment is complete. Your community appears well situated to handle local concerns without additional oversight. His departure carries final professional acknowledgement. Federal. Investigation satisfied without compromising her established identity. Operational verification completed without disrupting civilian integration. The exchange represents optimal resolution, recognition without exposure, verification without compromise. As afternoon sunlight filters through bookstore windows, Rebecca processes these interconnected developments with integrated assessment. Tactical awareness, evaluating security implications, while personal identity embraces community connection. The compartmentalization that defined her transition to civilian existence has evolved into synthesis, capabilities, and connections unified rather than segregated. The phantom marksman remains present within the bookseller, tactical operator, integrated within civilian identity rather than hidden beneath artificial separation. This evolution represents not compromise, but strength, complete identity rather than fragmented existence, capabilities available when needed without dominating daily experience. From her position behind the counter, Rebecca watches Everdale's Main Street with new perspective. Not tactical assessment seeking threats, but protective awareness valuing connection. The community she chose for strategic concealment has become home through mutual acceptance, residents respecting boundaries while acknowledging depths beneath surface identity. As Sheriff Lawson passes on afternoon patrol, their exchanged nods contain complete understanding, alliance based on demonstrated capabilities rather than explicit disclosure, mutual commitment to community protection through complementary skills. This balanced partnership represents perfect integration, specialized resources serving community needs without institutional constraints. The quiet life Rebecca established after leaving specialized service has evolved beyond tactical positioning into authentic existence, not abandonment of capabilities, but their integration into more complete identity. Everdale provides not just concealment but connection, community that values presence without requiring performance. The phantom marksman will remain vigilant, capabilities maintained through disciplined practice and tactical awareness. But Rebecca Harlow, the bookseller, now embraces equal authenticity, not cover identity, but genuine connection to community and place. The integration of these aspects represents not operational compromise, but personal wholeness, complete identity, rather than compartmentalized fragments. As evening approaches, Rebecca closes her shop with practiced efficiency, her movements incorporating both civilian routine and tactical awareness without artificial separation. She walks home along familiar streets, exchanging greetings with townspeople who value her presence without demanding disclosure of capabilities. Atlas greets her at the door, his canine perception recognizing the integration she has achieved. Tactical, vigilance and personal connection unified rather than divided. Together, they stand on the porch watching sunset paint Everdale's surrounding mountains with spectacular color, the community she has chosen to protect, settling into evening routines. Beneath her watchful presence, the quiet guardian has found her home. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out, and don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.